Good evening and welcome to another exciting show. Now, we have a surprise guest that many of you will recognise immediately. It's Miles Fleetwood from, and no relation to, was it Fleetwood Mac or anything like that, but it's from Abbey Health Food. Now, let's get my brand thing here. Here we go. Now, Miles is a trained nutritionist, herbalist, and acupuncturist, and I'm terribly sorry for the quality of this banner that I'm putting up, but it is done in, his card is done in blue and it doesn't scan very well, but he's actually in 3 Sun Street, Waltham Abbey, Essex, and EN9 1ER, and the telephone number is above there. Now, tonight, Miles will be speaking about vitamins and minerals. That's the title of the show. And people, when they see me taking minerals and vitamins, they say, what do you need that for? My doctor tells me there's enough vitamins and minerals in my vegetables and fruits, so you don't need to take all that, do you? So I'm being the devil's advocate there. Over to you, Miles, when imagine it's someone talking to me saying, what do you need all those minerals and vitamins for? So good evening, Miles. Over to you.
Good evening, everybody. It's a very good question because, unfortunately, you're asking the wrong person whether you need any vitamins or minerals, and you're asking the wrong question of that person. If you're not allowed to get any training in vitamins and minerals or nutrition, and you're not allowed to be asked any questions within that field for your exams, it doesn't matter how skilled you are in your own field. It's very unlikely you're going to have any clue as to what they're doing, because why would you want to learn something that you're not actually allowed to use that knowledge in an exam for to benefit you for your further career? Some doctors do have a vested interest in it, and some doctors will study themselves postgraduately, and they'll do their own thing. The big problem is not the fact that they're not knowledgeable about this. They actually give the wrong answer. They give a destructive answer. The answer that they should be giving is that the amount of nutrients that you need cannot be got from your diet, from a standard diet that's where you're buying vegetables and meats and fish from an ordinary supplier, let's say a supermarket, and let's go a little bit up market so that we can perhaps get some really nice quality products like Waitrose but that doesn't necessarily mean they're better, but they're generally quite a good store to shop from, I feel. However, it's not their fault either. The fault becomes the fact that when the farmers are farming, they're paid for the product by weight, not by nutritional value. So if you're paid by weight and you want that crop to hold a good weight and a good size, because they're the things that people look for, then you're going to make that crop grow as big and as abundant as you can, as fast as you can. Sadly, we'll talk about vegetation first. That means that a cabbage, for example, is grown at an alarmingly fast rate to get from the field to the shop, and from a seedling to the shop as fast as possible, or from the seedling to being harvested as fast as possible. The fact of the matter is that by putting fertilizers on are similar to Growmore, which anyone who's got an allotment will know what Growmore is. It's an artificial fertilizer that contains just 3 minerals, and it's K, P, and N. So it's potassium, nitrogen, and phosphorus. Actually, I've got that in the wrong order, but never mind. And those 3 items make it grow big, make it grow green, and make it grow crisp. Sorry, I said green. Make it grow colourful and make it grow crisp, I should have said. Because if it's a tomato, it'll make it turn a reddish color as well. The fact of the matter is that you won't find a supplement that contains those in any abundant amounts, because we know that they've got enough of those in your standard diet. You wouldn't need to supplement in a normal situation. However, the medical fraternity see it that we need 90 nutrients. So when I pose the question to anyone who says, why are you taking those, and now you can get more from your diet, and etc., etc., I've heard all of that as well. Say, well, I'm fine for 3 of them. What am I going to do with the other 87 nutrients that medical fraternities say that you need? And I don't think there's 87 other ones that you need. I think there's around about 210. It's been unproven, but if you look at the turn of the last century, there was only one vitamin, and that was A vitamin. And then suddenly they discovered the B vitamins. And so they said, oh, we'll make A vitamin, vitamin A, and then we'll make it vitamin B. And then they realized they had some other nutrients out there. And this happened with the minerals as well. And now they've come up with a total that they reckon of 90. I would say if you were to live on just those 90, you'd be quite poorly. So you do need more than that 90. The next thing that we need to look at, so that's looking very briefly at the intensive farming of vegetables. Sadly, and more abhorrent to me anyway, is the farming of animals intensely. And probably the most abused animal that I can think of for food source is chicken. Chicken is not really, in my opinion, ordinary chicken is not really suitable for human consumption. Now that's a real controversial subject, which I'm going to stay a little bit away from because we haven't come here to discuss that tonight. But this is a chick that goes from a day-old chick normally, and within 6 weeks it's farmed and it's on a shelf in a fridge in a supermarket. It's given growth promoters, it's given antibiotics, and most of them are also given hormones to make them grow faster. That meat has really been sabotaged, in my opinion. I would advise anyone eating chicken, of the cheapest chicken that you can get, to have another look at it and try just once and see where you can taste the difference. Organic chicken, and I know it's an awful lot more expensive, so for families who are struggling, a £3.50 chicken is suddenly, I've turned that into an £11.50 chicken by saying buy an organic one. I think if you tried it once, you'd see what I'm on about, though. It would give you an insight of what I'm talking about. The organic chicken, they are not allowed to give it growth promoters. They are not allowed to give it antibiotics unless it's to treat it for an illness, and even then they're not allowed to sell it as organic. It can go as a environmental grade chicken, but it cannot be sold as organic. And they're not allowed to give them hormones. They also take an awful lot longer. Probably the youngest chicken you'll see in a supermarket, if it's one of these, because they're much slower growing, will be somewhere around about 3-4 months, which is still not long, but it's 6 months. It's still not long, but it's a lot longer than the other chicken with its 6 weeks. The other meats are not as bad. Probably the safest meat to eat, if you want to get back to a basic type of product, which is where we all should be heading, would be lamb, because most lambs are reared on scrap land. They eat shrubs that are wild out in the field. They're not, they are given certain medications, and they are given certain growth promoters. Well, they can be given growth promoters, but it's nowhere near at the same rate that you would give to chickens. So probably that's the safest meat to eat. As for fish, one of my favorites, I actually had fish for tea tonight, which
Same
probably
here.
was, yeah, it probably was farmed, unfortunately. And farm fish, again, are fed all sorts of products that are not naturally their diet. They'll eat things like the offal from sheep, and that's, I don't know if you're aware, but sheep carry a disease called scrapie, and that's where CJD came from, that outbreak, because they were giving the protein, reprocessed protein, to cattle from sheep, and they were giving it from sheep that had scrapie. They didn't know that the disease would go across the breed boundary, but it did. So where does this lead us to? This leads us to the foods being deprived of nutritional value. Then we've got another area where they're deprived of nutritional value, and that's storage. If you were to grow your own vegetables, I'm sure you'd nip out to the allotment, pick yourself the vegetables you want to eat that day, and cook them up and eat them. Fantastic. I fully recommend that. If you have an allotment, try and grow it as close to nature as intended, so manure rather than adding fertilizers. The storage, though, of them, often the crops are transported fairly quickly to dispatch centres, which then supermarkets come and collect from to dispatch round to their supermarkets. That all takes, though, somewhere normally around about 3 or 4 days. So your crop is already aging when you get it. And this is true of meat and of fish and of vegetation. So that storage then becomes, putting it on the shelves, it could be up to 2 weeks old by the time you've got your cabbage. That's got a best before of 3 days in the future. So you know you've got 3 days more to eat it. And that probably takes it to something like 2 or 3 weeks. I don't know the technicalities on that, but I do know it takes time. The other thing, so that storage isn't good. As you can imagine, it starts deteriorating the moment you cut it from the root that it's grown in. The other method of storing, especially fruits and especially berries and cherries, is what they call blast chilling. Now, blast chilling was seen as a fantastic way of bringing the economy of the supermarkets and the economy of the growers dramatically up. However, it really is just the people who've invested in that fruit that are gaining from it. With blueberries and most of the berries, they can store them for up to about 2 years and still sell them as fresh, and still sell them in the chill cabinet in the supermarket's fridge. Now, blast chilling takes it to about 2 degrees. I think it has to be between 1.8 and 2.1 degrees centigrade. It does slow down the deterioration dramatically at that temperature. By not freezing it, you can stop it from crystallizing. So you don't break down the tissues in the fruit itself, in the berry itself, which is good news for the berry and good news for you if you like the texture of a berry to be firm but juicy. However, it doesn't do anything to slow down the... that's wrong. Miles, I'm lying now. So I'm going to straighten that comment out. It doesn't dramatically improve the longevity of the nutrients that are inside the plant. The plant has to make its nutrients while it's in one entirety. So you can't cut a piece of plant off, blast chill it and keep that bit good while a bit in the ground or the bit that's thrown away rots and decays. It will also lose its nutrients. The nutrients in the plant are there to preserve it. The nutrients in the animal are because it's eaten the plant, and so it's concentrated in the animal. We don't blast chill meats because they can't take it. We don't blast chill eggs because they can't take it. So you're left with it really being the domain of vegetables for that. We do freeze meats, and there's a very dramatic decline in certain amino acids and enzymes inside the meat when you freeze it, which makes it more indigestible. It makes it tends to rupture cells And that's part of the reason that when you take a piece of meat out of the fridge and it looked perfectly okay, of red meat, you take it out of the packet and suddenly you realize it's sitting in a pool of blood. That is because of the fact that the cells have ruptured, so the blood has come out of the meat. You've suddenly deprived yourself of some of the best bit of that meat. The blood carries most of the nutrients, so you're just chucking that bit down the drain. Very sad, not the way to go. And you also destroy, like I say, a load of amino acids, some of which we need, some of which we don't, some we can make. But why get a premium product and ruin it by freezing it? Take it home and eat it, but before you freeze it. Then we get on to another area where supermarkets are fantastic at destroying nutrients. If you think about it, I've said all the time, it's all about chilling. It's all about cooling to preserve. We've got blast chillers, we've got freezers, we've got fridges that keep their vegetables good. Well, now I'm going the other extreme. Pre-prepared meals, my pet hate. People love them because they can get home like I did tonight from a day's work, slam a Chris, that's my gun at your head. Put a microwave meal from the pre-cooked meal in the microwave, nuke it in the microwave, and lo and behold, 3 minutes you got a hot meal. You'd sort of get away with it if it was every now and again, but if you're doing it as a standard thing, it will improve your degeneration. I don't want you to degenerate. So I've got lots of hair, Chris, and you're not there, I'm afraid.
I've got a see-through wig on, actually.
So pre-cooking of food makes it decay even faster, and it destroys even more nutrients because you cook it once, then you're reheating it. And when you reheat, it destroys the few nutrients that are left. So that's pre-cooking of food. So now we've really deteriorated our foods. Then there's cooking, sadly. So if you want more nutritional value from a meal, have a salad. However, it's not always the case. But as an example, if you were looking at someone who was unfortunate to have certain cancers, especially cancers of the reproductive organs, so for males, prostate cancer, for females, cervical cancer, if you were to eat raw tomatoes, strangely enough, it wouldn't do you as much good as cooked tomatoes. And that's been scientifically proven, and it's because of a carotenoid in there that's called lycopene. If anyone wants to talk about lycopene to me, put it in the chat and we'll talk about it later on. I don't want to dwell on that at this moment in time. Generally speaking, we lose more nutrients when we cook food. So let's go back to where you bought your fresh food from your greengrocer or from your supermarket. You take it home, you leave it in the fridge for a day, and then you cook it. The cooking of it will destroy quite a lot of nutrients. I do eat cooked food. I don't have a raw food diet. So how do I do it? Well, luckily for me, I quite like rare meat. So I will have my steak, and I will eat steak. I'm not a veggie or a vegan. I will eat my steak rare. So I'm undercooking that for most people. You obviously can't do that with all meat. I wouldn't recommend that you try that with pork, for example, and most definitely not for chicken, unless it's organic. The organic ones, actually, there's never been a salmonella case against the organic chicken or the organic egg. So really? That's true. Yeah. Whereas on a weekly basis, there's many cases of salmonella against ordinary eggs and ordinary chicken. It's because the chicken's immune system, which we're going to talk about later on tonight, probably, the chicken's immune system, because they're fed a better diet, they're not getting growth promoters, they're not getting antibiotics permanently, and they're not getting hormones, has a chance to function, so it kills off the salmonella in its meat before it's slaughtered. So that's probably why. And the egg's the same sort of story. So we've gone through the bad things. Now let's have a look at some of the myths, as far as I'm concerned. One that a very good friend of mine, and a friend of mine through the shop, and a very nice person, said to me, "Oh, you shouldn't be cooking in a microwave. It destroys all the nutrients." Well, we've actually seen that it doesn't. If you look at the research behind it, certain nutrients are reduced more than just standard cooking. Some are actually destroyed less than standard cooking. So it's very much still the case isn't proven or proven against microwave cooking. Personally, I don't really go on it too much because of the fact that it just doesn't taste as good as cooking. I'm a bit of a foodie and I'm a bit of a cook as well. So, well, I think I am. So another area that we need to perhaps look at is organic farming. Should we all be eating organic produce? Is that the answer? Is that the cure to this problem? Well, it certainly takes us a bit closer to sorting the problem out, but unfortunately, organic just means a lack of use of pesticides. Yeah, they're not allowed to use growth promoters. They're not allowed to use hormones. They're not allowed to use antibiotics unless it's for treating the animal for an illness. So it's only part of the story. It's not really, you've not replaced the nutrients that the soils are lacking. You've not stopped it being stored for a long period of time. You've not stopped it being frozen. And you've not even stopped it being pre-cooked. So in my opinion, it's, yeah, I like to eat organic foods to try and keep that movement going, but I pick and choose a bit. I'm a bit picky. I'm too mean to just go totally organic. So a very brief synopsis, if you want to know how I do it, and you might have other ideas. If, for example, a foodstuff is naturally wrapped by another part of the plant, so like peas in a pod, for example, or beans in a pod, or indeed corn with the sleeve around the corn, then I'm not too bothered about organic because it's saved from having direct contact with it, and the plant will filter out certain things, so it won't absorb all of the harmful products that are sprayed onto it. If it's, however, a leafy with a large surface area, particularly, so cabbage, or even worse still, Savoy cabbage, which I happen to love as well, yeah, I'd get that organic because it's got such a huge surface area that is exposed, and the spray will go down in between the leaves and it will get into the heart of the cabbage. You're better getting that organic. And the other area I look for with organic crops are root vegetables. They're actually literally a few pence more often nowadays. They're not that much more. And if it's sitting in a soil that's got a pesticide in it or a herbicide in it, one, you're doing nature no favors at all, and two, you're doing yourself no favors because it's surrounded by, it can't help but absorb some of those products. So I personally would avoid those. I tend to get the organic if I've got a choice. So Chris's friend, who says to him, "What you're doing eating all of those you can get from your diet?" I hope I've given you some insight as to why you can't get it from his diet. So now I'm going to talk about different ways of supplementing if I've got the chance to. Supplementing is to replace the bulk of the nutrients. This is one of the things I see supplementing doing, replacing the bulk of the nutrients that you've lost or destroyed or have a lack of in your vegetables and in your meats because of the way it's been intensively farmed, stored, cooked, pre-cooked, etc., etc. If we are going to follow that routine, we need to get 3 basic areas covered. First of all, though, I'm going to tell you what vitamin, mineral, and essential fats actually mean? Because they're the three things I'm going to be talking about for having as essential. I don't know if you're aware, but vitamin means essential for life. Vita is life, min means essential for. And so minerals, essential. And then along come a lot later, so they're not in Greek, I believe it's Greek, you get essential fatty acids. And so that word essential is there. Anything that's in nutrition that says it's essential, it means without it, within a shortish period of time, you will die. So you do need to get them. And sure enough, you are getting some of them from the stuff that you're eating. But are you getting enough? So to cover most eventualities, you want a broad spectrum, high strength multivitamin. For this one is especially for ladies, and especially for ladies who've had children. You want a broad spectrum, high strength multi-mineral. It doesn't mean that us men don't take minerals. I do take minerals. I probably take as much as a woman who's had children. And you take some essential fatty acids of the omega-3, 6 and 9 group. Now, what I tend to hear, and this is from therapists, dare I admit it, I get people saying, in fact, I had one last week. Admittedly, she's a massage therapist, so what would she necessarily know about nutrition? She said, oh, I get plenty of omega-3 because I eat sardines and I eat tuna and I said, what, fresh sardines, fresh tuna, fresh mackerel or whatever it was? Oh no, out of a tin. Well, the problem with that is that you've got two things that destroy essential fatty acids. One is light. Well, there's three things. One is light. Well, there's none of that getting into the tin, so that should be okay. Another one is heat. Well, it's actually pressure cooked, most of the fish before it's canned, and that's why it breaks up so easily. So that's been raised to above 100 degrees, and light, heat and age. And certainly if you look at canned fish, most of it has got a sell-by date, even when you buy it in the supermarkets, 2 years in advance at least. It's probably already had 6 months to a year in a can anyway. It's finished. That's not essential fatty acids. It might say that on the tin, but if you read it carefully, it will say at time of canning, it had that much omega-3 inside it. They are, by the time you open them, and that's why it smells fishy, they've turned rancid, and those rancid fats are trans fats, so positively destructive. It's not that they're even not dangerous. They could be very dangerous and could actually cause you to have more problems from fats rather than less problems from fats. That's so we're coming back to the omega oils and which ones you should take. Well, there's an expert on this who rated me as very highly, who flattered me like mad when I was still a student of nutrition. A very, very famous nutritionist called Udo Erasmus. Now, Udo Erasmus is a Canadian. He's probably originally from somewhere like Hungary or Romania or something with a name like Erasmus. And he happened to be, or happens to be, the world's leading expert on oils. He's written a very good book. It's not above and beyond most people who are listening in. I wouldn't have thought it'd be beyond any of them, actually. It's sort of O-level or lower chemistry that he goes into. And he talks about why these fats are important, how they're important, and how they should be stored. And just from a commercial point of view, guess what? He made an oil blend, and it happens to be a very good oil blend. His oil blend carries 2 lots of omega-3 to 1 lot of omega-6 to 1 lot of omega-9. And I'm going to throw in another one. It carries a little smidgen of omega-7. So it's obviously not exactly 2 to 1 to 1 ratio, but it's in that area. And the omega-7, the main use of omega-7 is for the thyroid function. So if you do have a thyroid function, you might want to look into omega-7. It's just as important, just as vital as iodine. That's taken us through the organic foods and a little bit about supplementing there. So what I tend to do with my patients is give them that as a hub. And I've got a very funky little machine. You don't have to do it by this. I think Chris knows what I'm talking about. He's seen this machine that tells me what nutrients you're actually short of. So it's very good at finding out what you should be taking. And it doesn't tell you about RDAs, because RDA, or recommended daily amount, is the amount you need to stop you getting a disease that's directly related to a lack of that nutrient. For example, with vitamin D, which I hope most of you are taking at the moment. Are you, Chris?
Yes, vitamin D3.
Excellent, excellent. Vitamin D, the amount of vitamin D that you need to take according to the RDA, the recommended daily amount, is the amount that you need to take to stop you getting rickets. Well, I've met hundreds of people with rickets in my clinic today, literally hundreds. I've never met anyone with rickets, actually. So we are getting enough to stop us from getting rickets. The amount with vitamin C, I mean, hundreds of those as well, is scurvy. Well, I don't think there's been a case of scurvy in this country for many, many years. So you're getting enough to keep you from getting the disease that you get from a lack of that nutrient, a total lack of that nutrient. However, I have this feeling and this passion to not just be enough to keep me from getting diseases. I want enough to give me abundance and give me vitality and get up and go. And that's why I take a hub. It's why I take satellites, as they're called. I'll draw you a little picture of what I mean by that. So you've got a hub with vitamins, minerals, oils, and out from that, depending on what you've got going on, depending on what illness you've got, you might want some satellites. So very briefly, one of Miles's great pictures here, I'll hold it up there. In the middle here, we've got the vitamins, minerals, and oils. Around here, let's say you've got a problem with, I'm going a bit weird there. Let's say you've got a problem with, like me, with your ears. Both of my eardrums perforated when I was 4 years old. So I've had in my life a lot of ear infections. So over here, this one would be perhaps for ear infections. And in there, I would put things like garlic, and I would put things like NAC, which would clear my sinuses, clear me of phlegm. And the garlic would clear those sinuses from getting infection. I might add some more vitamin A. Which one was it? This one, more vitamin A, because that also supports the mucous membranes and keeps them sterile. The other thing would be zinc in there, perhaps. And so you then build up these satellites to help you with your illnesses. So I actually watched yesterday the talk that Haley gave out, and very good. I don't know anything about crystals, but I feel I do now, and I feel I want to learn more. It was a very good talk. She talked to someone came on and said that they had CKD. Well, CKD, and
is this the lady?
Is it? Excellent. I have kidney disease. There it is. Yeah.
Yes.
So this would be one of the satellites that we would actually be able to treat that, or certainly slow down the progression of that CKD, depending on what's causing it, etc., etc. I've actually had in the clinic today, I obviously can't tell you the name or anything, but I've had someone in today, and we're working with polycystic kidney disease. She also has, that's degenerative, and it leaves scars on your kidneys. So it's quite a nasty disease. And we've got it very much under control. She doesn't have any medications for it. We're doing it totally with nutrition and herbs. I talked to her about acupuncture, because I'm also an acupuncturist. And she's declined that at the moment. She says she will consider it, but I think she's got a bit of a phobia of needles, actually. So as it's under control, why worry? And she's come to see me today, and she's coming from Nottingham. And like I say, we can treat most ailments. When we started, and I was showing her vitamin and minerals in this hub form that I'm talking about, she really did question whether or not I was going to be able to help her, and contemplated not continuing. We're now about 4 or 5 years in, about 4 years, I think, 4.5 years, something like that. And yeah, we've got it under control. It's very much under control. She's not on medications, and the medical profession can't understand how it's happened this way. But we had that. We get that quite a bit. So obviously those satellites are different for each person. You're not going to be giving the same things to everyone, because not everyone's got kidney disease. Not everyone's got bad ears like me. So coming up to another little sort of area that we're looking at in this, which that has led me very nicely into, and that's the rewards you can get from doing a nutritional program. And I'm not saying you don't need to look at diet as well. You cannot get everything from your supplements. You need a good diet backed up by some good supplements. And one thing I would say here as well, you want naturally sourced supplements. I nearly left that out. You want naturally sourced ones. There's two basic types. You've got naturally sourced, and you've got petrochemical based nutrients. The petrochemical based chemically look the same, but they don't seem to behave the same. They're a lot cheaper to make, and most of the cheaper lines like Boots and Superdrug and a few online companies will be carrying those products in their production. So if you're buying online, well, my first recommendation is get to know your health food shop, get to know the person in it, check that they understand what's going on and how products work. My shop's in Waltham Abbey, for example, but I have some very good competition in where's that one called? I'm trying to think. Hartford Health is very, very good, very knowledgeable. Not as good as me, of course. But
I'll just stick your that's your card on there. So if you want to contact Miles, here is Abbey Health Foods, and you've got the telephone number there. Okay.
Okay.
Right, sorry.
What I'm saying is, get to know the people you're buying from. They will guide you. If they know what they're doing, they'll guide you very well in the independents. Holland and Barrett, they're not really the shop assistants. And, Tesco's, they're definitely shop assistants. So get to know and get some natural sourced supplements as a minimum. If you've got enough money, get food source supplements, even better still, but they are a little bit pricey. Right, so what can you expect to get from this? You're there now and you're doing a nutritional program and you're taking your supplements. Well, the first thing you're going to get is less degenerative disease. So the degenerative diseases, what I mean by that, are things where we tend to think it's old age. And your doctor will say, well, if I went to my doctor and told him about my ears, he probably wouldn't even look on my record, because it was a doctor that messed up, basically, is why my eardrum was perforated. He'd probably say, well, you can't expect to have perfect hearing. You're 60 years old and blah, 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 blah. Rubbish. That's what I'd say to him. It's a degenerative disease because of the fact that mine were damaged at that time. I was told I'd be deaf by the time I was 40. I'm not deaf. I go and see people now, not specifically because I've given up with doctors in that respect, but the last time I had a test on my ears, they said, can you hear that? Can you really hear it? Well, what did they think? When you get a bleep in your ear and they tell you to push a button, I pushed the button. I'm not guessing. I'm doing what they told me to do. So degenerative diseases, the most classic of which is arthritis, osteoarthritis. Oh, you can't expect to have good knees at your age. Well, my grandmother died at age 99. She didn't have any arthritis at all. She was very active, and probably because she had a diet that was great up until the war, that probably helped her not have arthritis. She also kept very active. She was a very fine athlete and never developed arthritis. So it's not a wear and tear disease. It's a degenerative disease because you've not got the right materials to regrow tissues. You also get better cognitive function. So, Chris, you need a bit of this. This will help you stay your mind to stay active and have the ability to think things through and to work out situations, not just puzzles in a book, although they are good. That's a good method of keeping your brain active, but it's not just that. You need the food for the brain, and the food for the brain are nutrients, and especially the oils. To give you some idea, I see the oils as vitally important, but a live brain is between 60 and 70%. It's probably about 64 in most people's heads. In most cases, 64% of a live brain is just essential fats. So it shows you how important they are. In fact, Udo, on that score, gave essential fatty acids as part of his research. He gave essential fatty acids to the criminally insane. He had a 98.7% who stopped committing crimes in that way while they were on the oils. So virtually every one of them. There was just 1.3% that didn't stop committing crimes. However, when he took them off, he only got about a 3% who didn't recommit crimes. So it shows you that actually criminally insane is probably just they haven't got the right amount of oils in the head. Better cognitive function. Oils are vital for this, and vitamin E and a lot of the minerals, because the minerals are electrolytes, so they help the brain to function. You're going to be stronger mentally. What I mean by that is you're not going to get the depression as easily. I'm not saying you're not going to get it. Sometimes depression is a part of life, unfortunately, but you're not less. Sorry, Chris?
I suffer from depression. I've had it for years.
Right. Well, you need your minerals as well as your oils. I know you're doing them, so this will ease up. This will get less. And this is a progressive thing. You need to take them on an ongoing basis. It's not any good taking them for a week, a month, even 3 months. It's years and years. I actually suffer. Here I am with a PhD in nutritional science, but I actually suffer from dyslexia. How did I manage to get that PhD? Well, I managed to get the PhD partly because I was absolutely caning Udo's oil. I found that it gave me the ability to think clearer, to spell better, and also a lot of the credit goes down to spell checker. And luckily, my university was American, so they accepted the American spell checker. Oils, great for the brain, great for the nervous system. You still may get depression, but it's going to be a lot lighter if you get the oils going, and especially the minerals going. And you're also going to be stronger physically. I worked with, when I first completed my first degree in nutrition as a nutritional therapist, I worked for a very famous rugby team, and I don't know if I'm doing right or wrong, but I am going to mention who it is. It was the Saracens. And through that, I got in contact with at the time, a lot of the Saracens were in the England team, and a lot of the England team I was treating with nutritional products. The Saracens became the top team as a league team. Rugby union, I know that, but it's in the rugby union table they became the champions. And the England team benefited from it, and I think you know the history of that. That was the only World Cup they've ever won. Whether that was down to nutrition or not, but I actually got asked by the head coach, this is legal, isn't it? So I said, yeah, why? What are you saying? I can give them 20% more work and they recover 20% quicker. He said, it's just unbelievable. And that's what happens with the nutrition. You will recover quicker because your body's got all of the nutrients it needs to repair the tissues that got damaged, to replenish it with more oxygen if necessary, to replenish it with more sugars, because every food stuff gets broken down into sugars if we're using it for energy. So that, I think I'm going to have a little break from. If anyone's got any questions for me, please go ahead and ask. I'm happy to answer them. At the moment, though, Chris, I just can't see I haven't got anyone coming in, so you'd probably have to tell me what they're saying.
Well, I'll have to tell you what's in chat, but first of all, I can actually, I've had a sinus infection for a long time, for weeks. And this morning I was really, pretty woozy. And I took some garlic raw, put it in. I'm glad we haven't got smell-o-vision. And do you know, it went within about half an hour. I felt great after half an hour. It's surprising how quickly garlic works. But I get a lot of nasal infections and it makes you feel woozy. You can hear your ears are, your ears are going, and it's not very nice. And I think that has triggered the depressions. And thanks to Miles, it absolutely is advice, and what he gave me, it's working. But one thing I was going to mention is I often speak to people. I do occasionally speak to people, and they say, "Oh yeah, I've tried that. I tried all that. It doesn't work." Well, the fact that is that people are used to or been conditioned, and I hope I'm not sort of telling grey suck boiled eggs here, but a quick fix. Go along to doctors. Yes, as an antibiotic, take that. But it isn't a quick fix because you have other problems that the antibiotics cause. But I've found is that it takes a little bit longer naturally, but it does a proper job. Am I right in saying that? Because I was pretty bad last year because I suffer from nerves, and I'll give you an example. My hand, I can hold that there, stable. Last year it was shaking, and I started taking what you gave me in September. It kicked in about 3 months later, and boy, didn't it kick in. It really did the trick. But the other thing you were saying, that test that you gave me, which it was vitamins and minerals. Well, I walked in a bit smug because I've been taking minerals for years, so I'll be, there won't be much missing. And you start, right? And I'm thinking, and of course, I bought them off of eBay, a company which I won't mention, but they're very glossy. And I thought, oh, they're great. And then you looked on the side and you said, oh, hang on a minute, that's 0.001%. I'd actually been taking bulking agents and talcum powder. So I might as well gone down to Boots and bought myself some talcum powder and eaten that, because it's doing me hardly any, if any, good. And it's the same with magnesium. The magnesium I was taking, I'll probably be better off to sniff the tablet. I'll probably get more magnesium, which brings this in. So that's my own personal recommendation there. That's my own personal experience. But what happens is you can buy cheap tablets. You can buy cheap vitamins. And I know there was somebody, when I was in your shop, walked in and gave me an earful and said, oh, yeah, well, I can buy these down at what stage? You said, well, you might as well buy sweets. Well, I might as well have bought sweets. Yes, you get what you pay for. And apparently vitamin C, so a friend of mine actually told me, vitamin C from supermarkets isn't vitamin C. And is that right?
It's probably ascorbic acid. There's 5 really generations of vitamin C. There's ascorbic acid, which is the cheapest way of producing vitamin C. You then get that's also the most volatile, so it's the one that causes the most problems with the digestion and with absorption and with function even. And it's for people who can take it, it's fine. But for a lot of people, they're taking it because they're not well, and then they get, unfortunately, more irritated from this ascorbic acid. You then get ones that are bonded to a mineral like calcium ascorbate and magnesium ascorbate. They are better because they're not as acidic, and so they don't cause the irritation. But it's, again, they can be not tolerated too well. The level at which I think you should all be looking is where it's multiple minerals it's been bonded to. That's a lot closer to how it comes in nature. So you're getting calcium ascorbate, magnesium ascorbate, zinc ascorbate, etc., etc. And that is how it appears in vegetable source vitamin C. You then get, which is a direct mimic of it, multiple sources of vitamin C. And that's where it's been bonded to an awful lot, probably 8 or more minerals. The last one is food source. And the food source, like I said, food source are the nicest nutrients. You need to have some deep pockets for food source vitamin C. To give you some idea, a food source vitamin C that we stock is £27 for 30 tablets, and they're 300 milligrams each. I could give you a multi-source ascorbic acid for about a £5, and you get 1,000 milligram tablets, and you get 30 of them for under a £5. And it's sort of horses for courses, really. Yeah, you are better getting the food source one, but it's gonna really crease you financially if you're doing it long term. And as we've said, it's not a short term thing; it's a long term thing. As far as I want to mention one thing with foods, you taking a garlic product. This is where garlic products are actually better. You're better to get a supplement than you are to take a garlic product. If you were to take, absolutely. If you were to take the garlic long term, garlic is actually it's actually a cell killer. It's cytotoxic to cells, so it will speed up degeneration if you're doing it long term. Now, I cook with garlic very, very regularly, but I don't have huge amounts of it. I have a small amount to give me a little taste of garlic in the food stuff. If you're getting one of our brands, it doesn't deteriorate the cells at all. And that's a product that isn't even garlic. It's just the active ingredient of garlic. So it actually it doesn't smell of garlic. It's a really weird thing. Each one of the capsules, and they're tiny little capsules, but each one of the capsules, because it's just the active ingredient, contains the equivalent of 48 bulbs, not cloves, bulbs of garlic. And you wouldn't be eating that much, quite honestly. It is very, very potent. And then we've got another one, which is an aged garlic product. And that aged garlic product, that's what you've got.
Well, that's what you got. Yeah, I got that before last year.
Yeah. The aged garlic product is actually an antioxidant. So it slows down deterioration of cells, not kills cells off. So that is why I see that as a better long-term product. The fact that you got cleared so quick from the garlic is partly because of the fact that you got volatile oils in there that are killing off the bug there and then, which perhaps we'll have another talk at another time in the future. Yeah. I'm not totally convinced that bugs are the cause of the problem.
Well, here we go. So actually, before we go into chat, Kim, who you know, has asked a question, and I've written it down because I've got a memory I can see him. And she said, why do we get cravings when we're unwell? For example, for Rice Krispies, cornflakes, mashed potato, and all kinds of weird things like that. I know that pregnant women get cravings to eat cold, but why is that? So, Kim, I brought your question up. Okay, so So that
Oh,
wasn't in chat. But Kim's asked me to ask you. You know Kim, I believe.
yes, yeah, Kim, lovely lady, absolutely lovely. Right, if you look at that list, it's predominantly starches that she's mentioning there. And normally, if you've had a long-term illness, the last thing that you want are things that are difficult to digest and metabolize. Starches, and this is why the world's obese, unfortunately, as well. Let's answer her question first, then I'll go on to why the world is becoming obese. If you're poorly, your body doesn't want to exert any more energy trying to digest, for example, fats or proteins. So if you have starchy carbohydrates, they're the easiest thing, with the exception of sugar, to get calories from. And though they break down very quickly, they give you an instant lift as far as energy is concerned, but they're very short-lived in that. So it's probably that you want that quick lift, that quick shot of energy to get you to the stage where you can start recovering better, acting better, and even sometimes taking enough product there so you can actually get enough energy to your digestive system. As I say, it's another system. So it's just like the musculoskeletal system, it needs energy to function. So it may be that you're needing that just enough to get your digestion ready for the next meal that you're going to have, which may well be protein. Protein definitely carries more calories per gram, and it definitely is more long-lived in the digestive tract. I hope that answers it.
Excellent. Well, we've got a question here from Paul Green, and it says, what does Miles believe is the most easily absorbed magnesium compound? So that's an interesting question.
Right, this is another very, very interesting one, because a few years ago, magnesium oxide got a slaughtering. Indeed, most magnesium supplements were magnesium oxide. Subsequently, it's actually recovered its status a bit as being a reasonable source of magnesium. The trouble with magnesium, your body it sort of adapts to having a certain type of magnesium. So let's say, for example, you're getting magnesium oxide because you're taking a magnesium oxide every day. The body will slow down its absorption of magnesium oxide, because it's got an abundance of that coming in. So even if it's deficient, it will become less good at absorbing it. The best source is a multi-source. So to answer your question, it's not any one magnesium. It's, if you're looking to buying a magnesium, look to get magnesium citrate, magnesium gluconate, magnesium oxide, and any others that happen to be out there, but as a multi-source magnesium. So the magnesiums that we stock in my shop are either triple or quad source magnesiums. We don't have anything less than that. But it does mean that they're a little bit higher price because they're more to manufacture. Does that answer it? I hope so.
Hope so. Now we got here Edge Crusher. You know Edge Crusher with Vicky.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Yeah. It's anyway, it's Richard. I think chicken breast is 8 times the size in the same time period as it was 25 years ago. There is a good butcher's in Stevenage, no hormones, chlorine or antibiotics. Hello, Chris and Miles. Yes,
I
think it's Walken. Walken, I think it's somewhere here there. So I'm thinking you'll fill us in on that. And we've got here John Bunyan. Is Siam's organic meat any good?
It probably is okay. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like I said about the health food shop, which I think Chris was a bit shocked about me saying there's other good health food shops around. There's good butchers around as well, and a good independent butcher, you'll get to know them like you would in the health food shop, and you'll find, yeah, this person knows their cuts, they know their meats, and you'll probably be able to they'll recommend. I've certainly got a couple of butchers that recommend me products when I go in there, and they say, "Oh, don't take that. Take this instead." You know, I'll be in to buy lamb chops, and they'll go, "Oh, buy the Barnsley lamb chops. They're much better." Okay, then I'll buy them. You know, and it's not because they're more expensive. It is because they're better meat, and he's just wanting his regulars to get the best products that they can, because then we go back. So get a good butcher. Sainsbury's
Where
on
are they?
everything. Sorry?
Because, well, the one in Waltham Abbey has closed down. The one in
It's
Waltham Cross
closed,
has closed. There's one in Turnford, I think there is, but there's very few independent butchers around nowadays.
Well, I'm over in northwest London, Chris, and yeah, I do agree with you. The two that I know are very specialist. I mean, one of them's an organic butcher, and the other one does organic meats, but he's a game dealer as well as a butcher. So it's become very much a specialist area. But I think if JS is about, and I think JS will know who I'm talking about, he knows of a good butcher around the Ongar area. And maybe he can come on and give us some advice as well on that.
He probably will. And I've just put this little note in. This is Miles's shop, and it has a fantastic atmosphere. And when you're sitting in there, where else could you look out and see a beautiful view of the Harp pub, which is listed, and also Abbey itself, the actual Waltham Abbey. And it really has a very nice, quaint atmosphere. And that is what health should be about. It's very relaxed and it's very peaceful. It's a very nice environment to be in, not like one of these what I call amnesia architecture buildings, but that's another question. Right, we go back into comments now, and what we got here, oh yes, we got Kat. Hello, Kat. Evening, Kath. Sorry, Kath Holdsworth. Butcher, good one. It's loads better than supermarket. I agree there. I would never buy meat from supermarkets. I'm afraid I.
Yes, so do I. Even though I've got two good butchers, they're not always open when I want to buy some meat. I don't store my meat, as you probably guessed from what I've said earlier. So I do occasionally buy from supermarkets. I do try to avoid it. It's not. I tend to agree. It's not of the same quality, generally speaking.
Well, that's interesting, because I mean, I'm you saying about microwaves. I'm anti-microwave. I don't have any microwave food at all. And I was going to buy an induction hob until I found the amount of electromagnetic smog that came off them. So no, I only have gas central heating, but I keep to ordinary electric plates. And the thing that I think that I try and get back to, shall we say, as our ancestors ate as much as possible. But it showed up on that test that I had. You said, I don't know if you said, you have quite a few of these ready meals, don't you?
Did I? I can't even remember.
Yeah, I remember you said, I went, but I don't put them in a microwave. I actually slow cook them. Right, we got here Rosanna Belcher. Hello, Rosanna. Italy and France eat a lot of horse meat as well. Any thoughts on that? That's an interesting one.
I've got a great story on it, but my thoughts on it. I've probably eaten horse meat. Well, I know I've eaten horse meat, and I've eaten some horse meat in this country. I don't know if that upsets people. I feel it's just another animal, like a cow or a sheep, and it deserves a good life while it's alive. I think every animal deserves a good life while it's alive, and it deserves to be slaughtered in a very humane way. I don't agree with the mass slaughtering of animals. I would be prepared to pay quite a bit more money to know that that animal suffered as little as possible while it was being slaughtered. Horse meat, it's probably good meat. If you want to know the story, I'll quickly tell it to you. But we had a traveller came in the shop, and we also had a Dutchman in the shop at the same time. And the traveller, for some reason, was talking about horse meat and how you can't eat horse meat. Well, I think the travellers have a very big they're influenced very strongly by their horses, and it's part of their way of life. And the Dutchman said, "Oh, I've eaten horse meat," and he said, "Oh, you must be a very strong man. You must be, oh, to have eaten horse meat and lived. You know, you must have been very, very strong," said the traveller. And I said, "Well, not necessarily. I've probably eaten it. Well, I know I've eaten it as well. I've eaten it in various sausages that I've eaten over in this country. And while I've been in France and in Italy, I have had it. Not that I choose it, but I have had it. I'm pretty confident." And he said, "No, you can't be. You're not strong enough." So there you are. The Dutchman's strong enough to eat horse meat, but I'm certainly not. So what do I think about it? I think it's another prime piece of mammal meat. It's not, for most people here, they do object to it. I don't fully understand why. I've tried it. I've eaten quite a few weird things in my time, though. I've done quite a lot of survival stuff where you do eat a lot of weird things out there. But horse meat wasn't on a survival course. That's probably when I've just been going around and eating either street food, salami type foods, or indeed in restaurants where I've probably inadvertently eaten horse meat. So I hope that answers your question.
It was a bit like the old Chinese saying, isn't it? A dog isn't just for Christmas. With care, there can be some left over for sandwiches in the new year. But anyway, I don't know. Oh, sorry, we had this one earlier from Suru, didn't we? About vegan, yes.
Oh, yes, this one.
Yeah. And then we got this weirdo. I don't know who he is. John Stevens, have you heard of him? Some weirdo, I don't know.
What's his name?
Rosanna. I think we've heard of John, haven't we?
I don't know who he is. But anyway, pick him up.
Some bloke, I don't know. Right,
we've got here. Vitamin D gives me. Oh,
Darren,
right.
Vitamin D gives me constipation. Does it really?
Right. What form are you taking? Can you get back to us and let us know what form?
Get back to us. Okay. Right. Now we've got here. Suru has come back. She says, "I'm stage 5. I will contact him. Thank you. Contact him up. Thank you." Oh, that's supposed to.
I think that Sue's going to get back to me about CKD. Yeah, phone the shop. We'll have a chat. Yeah, see if we can add anything to that.
Right. Okie dokie. And it says here, there's this bloke Town Cry. I don't know who he is either. Do you? Never heard of him.
No.
And it doesn't help when I scream. You don't. Well, it's funny. I came into your shop. I think it was John was in there. And he came in. I said, "Excuse me, do you know you've got a needle in your ear?" This thing glinted. He said, "Oh yes, yes." You don't normally speak to someone with a needle in their ear, do you? It's a sort of a new experience for me. You speak to people with a needle in their ear.
Right now, Chris, not allowed in the shop without having a needle put in your ear.
That's right. Now it says Darren again. So Darren, if you could get back to us about the vitamin D with the constipation. I've read that a lot of fortified cereals have these fake vitamins. That's a very good question. And minerals.
That is a very good question. Right. I would, first of all, there is no actual false minerals. So perhaps I've misled you there. Minerals are minerals, but they come in more and less absorbable states. I think it would be quite hard. It'd be very clever of the chemist to produce a mineral from another mineral, because that's almost sort of alchemy, isn't it? It's changing silver into gold, that kind of thing. So the minerals are probably just the cheapest form that they can hold of. The vitamins, well, I don't actually believe in fortifying. I think it's a bad thing, but that's because I believe in you knowing how much of each nutrient you're taking within reason. The fortification of cereals was debated very heavily back in the 50s, and I believe it's folic acid, for example, with schizophrenics, they can be tipped over the edge by taking too much folic acid. And so if you're fortifying cereals and they happen to be a little bit obsessed and perhaps eat the whole packet rather than just a serving, that could tip them over the edge. So I'm not convinced it's the right thing to do anyway. Yeah, probably they're artificial as well. So try and get yourself off the cereals. I don't like the idea of cereals for breakfast, quite honestly. Virtually anything but cereals. Cereals, in my opinion, are for birds and for rodents. If you think man would never have run around collecting the ears of wheat and collecting enough that he could then rub all the husk off them and grind them and turn them into bread, it just wouldn't have happened. We can blame our European friends for this. It was, first of all, the Greeks and then the Romans who realized they could take wheat with them and feed their armies, because what they were doing before was they were allowing their armies to get into position, and the armies would have to go out hunting for some food for that night's feast. So this is the night before they went into battle. So if they're scratching about trying to find foodstuffs, or indeed wasting time where they could be sleeping and resting before a battle, then they're not going to be as good in battle. So like I say, the Greeks realized that taking wheat with them, they could feed their armies on bread, and the Romans soon copied that idea.
That's interesting.
So
I didn't know.
You didn't know that?
No, I didn't know that. No, that's quite that's fascinating. And what about porridge? Is that all right for breakfast? I have that every morning.
Porridge is probably the least problematical of all of the grains, and it has quite a good side to porridge. It's all of the grains are relatively empty nutrients. They're starchy, but the oats have a very advantageous side to them, and that is that they are almost the perfect balance of soluble against insoluble fiber. Now, I haven't mentioned fiber up to now. Another thing that the doctors will say is, oh, go and eat a fiber-rich diet. If you've got bad bowels, that's a great thing to do. It's probably the worst thing you can do. It will actually savage your insides if you're having insoluble fiber, which is what they normally recommend, like oat bran and these kind of things. And not oat bran, sorry, wheat bran and all bran and bran flakes and these kind of things. That's insoluble fiber. And insoluble fiber, I don't know how many people have done this. I've certainly done it and learnt my lesson from it. You get a frying pan that's non-stick. I hasten to add, it's not recent. I don't use non-stick products. And I'm cleaning them with a Brillo pad. And what a surprise, all the surface comes off. Well, that's what you're doing with the bran. It literally rips your insides apart. And there's some very delicate there's a very delicate lining to the inside of your colon and indeed your intestine, and they're called villi, and they're like little tiny hairs inside there, and this just literally goes in there and rasps the hell out of them, so you lose a whole load of them every time you eat bran, and they never grow back. So your absorption of nutrients goes down because you've eaten bran, and then you get more diarrhea because the body's trying to clear it. The diarrhea is actually your body trying to clear something. And so you eat more bran because you want to regulate that and you want to pack it out with something, and you're making the problem worse, and it goes on. Whereas porridge oats are 80%, this is approximate, but 80% soluble fiber and about 20% insoluble fiber. 80% soluble fiber, when you wash a pan, when it's had oats in it, it's got that sort of stringiness and stickiness about it. That is soluble fiber. If you try soaking a few bran flakes or a few shreddies, they'll never fully dissolve. You've always got bits of bran left. If you dilute down the oat fibers that you've had in that pan, they'll just dissolve into water, and eventually you can't tell there's anything in there because they're so dilute.
That's interesting. That's fascinating.
So of all the cereals, the only cereal I think is worth having is oats.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that.
I don't eat cereals though. Don't really eat them. Very rare.
What's good for breakfast then? So you get up in the morning. So what do you have for breakfast? Not you personally, but anybody.
Right. Protein. It's what we would have had. Our ancestors would have had it. They would have either been out on a kill for the colder climes. They would have been out and they would have hunted at night. We can run at what, a maximum of about 30 miles, and even Usain Bolt about 30 miles an hour for about 60, 70 meters. That's about it. Most animals can escape from us. So we would have had to have hunted by stealth. So it would have been dawn and dusk hunters. And we would have taken the quarry back. We haven't got much defense against lions and, well, the big cats, the hyenas, the wolves. We haven't got much defense against them. So you'd have had to have eaten it pretty quickly. So the quarry would have been taken back. You would have eaten it. Likewise, if you're in the tropics, you don't want to pick a fight with an animal that eats seeds and nuts. If you're vegan, you don't want to pick a fight with a buffalo or something along those lines either. So you would have eaten them pretty quickly. The roots and tubers and things, I would suggest the things that would have been dug up when they realised there's no dangerous animals around during daylight hours. They would have probably dug those up, as well as collecting certain leaves and eaten those during the day. So that's how I see it, and that's how I understand it. So what goes along with that, we produce between 20 and 120 times as much stomach acid in the morning as we do in the evening. And yet, when do we have most of our protein? Normally in the evening meal. It's actually all the wrong way around. And I said I was going to talk about obesity, didn't I? Obesity is partly because we're not digesting our food. We're not able to get enough nutrients to survive. It's actually pushing us to the limit of our survival. So what makes us obese? Well, the fact that food is very abundant, but it's abundant and it's got no nutritional value. So to get your 15 milligrams of zinc, for example, you need to eat a vast amount of food. And that still contains calories because it's still got sugars in it and it's still got proteins in it and what have you, but it hasn't got much zinc. So your body then tells you to go out and eat more. So this is the craving thing, back to that. The fact of the matter is, a lot of people who go onto a nutritional program lose weight without even thinking about it. And they say, I'm eating more and I'm losing weight. Yeah, because they're digesting properly. And so they're getting more nutrients because of their supplementation. So they don't feel like they want to eat a lot more, but they possibly are eating a bit more, and that will all balance out. And eventually they'll start eating the right amount to maintain a certain weight. And that's why people are obese.
That's fascinating. I mean, so for breakfast, I mean, our grandparents used to say, "Oh, it's the most important meal of the day. Have a good breakfast before you go out." And so, really, it's more like having a nice meal first thing in the morning to set you up like a foundation for the day. So, I suppose the English breakfast, although that's fatty, but shall we say, would probably be fully English. Would probably
if we my respect to the vegetarians and the vegans, but if we didn't smoke the bacon and process the meat and add nitrates, preservative, etc., etc. So if you got back to an old-fashioned type sausage, old-fashioned type bacon, unsmoked, dry cured, it's quite a healthy breakfast actually. And fats, if you've got enough of the essential fatty acids, you will not take on those saturated fats that are found in the meat. You've filled up all of the space that carries fats. So you've filled up all the available fat receptors with the good fats. You won't absorb anything from them.
That's incredible, because you think of the word break fast. You're breaking the fast because you haven't eaten all through the night. Now, this is a very interesting one. This is Sebastian Moran. You know him. I know him. He gets on your telephone. He telephones you a lot, and he's had a lot of vitamins off of you.
And yes, of course. Yes.
Sebastian Moran. sorry, mate of mine. Hello, Chris and Miles. I think that's pleurisy and
Lucy,
water on
I
the
think I've
lung.
spoken to
Can
Sebastian
you
about.
please help? Or can you help,
Mm.
please?
I think I've spoken very briefly to Sebastian about this in the past when he's phoned the shop. Basically, the pleurisy and the water on the lung, it's a very, very tricky thing. We need to clear the pleurisy, and probably the way forward with this is not just nutritional, it's probably herbal as well, and maybe even some acupuncture to back that up. It's a very awkward one to heal at a distance, because I can't understand fully why he's still suffering from pleurisy. I know that he had a collapsed lung at one stage that we were talking about, but he's obviously not recovering well from it, and he's got fluid on the lung. The fluid on the lung, is that inhibiting him breathing still? Is he, how bad is he? And perhaps, Sebastian, you want to give me a call again. Wednesday would be a good day to phone me. I'm quite busy with acupuncture tomorrow, but phone me on Wednesday and I'll have a good chat with you about it. Maybe we can work some other things out with a little bit more knowledge. I obviously didn't manage to help you out the last time. My apologies. Phone me on, you know the number. Phone me on Wednesday and we'll go through it again.
That's great. This is for another program. Darren's mentioned Codex Alimentarius. I think that's for another program, because that's a completely different subject. Unless you want to say something about Codex Alimentarius, or shall we leave it to another program?
No, we'll leave that to I don't know anything.
Okay. Right. We're going down here, and now we've got Darren. It says, bingo, vitamin supplements, etc., are only of use if you can get the right thing. Yes, that's right. Because I thought look at the mistake I made. I thought I was taking vitamins and looking on eBay and thinking, oh yeah, I'll go around there, and I go to this lovely posh shop. Not posh shop, it was I won't mention the name, but somewhere in the Channel Islands.
Oh, then yeah,
there's lots of glossy stuff. I think their sales reps came to see you, didn't they? And I like when you look
with me, yes.
Yeah, and looked through it. He said, "Oh, you got what in that?" And the least said about that, the better. Right, now we got here Aunt Sally. Hello, Aunt Sally. I wonder what Miles thinks of colloidal silver. I keep hearing people talking about it, how marvelous it is. Eric von Essex, really? Me?
Okay. There we are. It's an Eric von Essex. Okay, colloidal silver. It is an amazing product. Don't get me wrong. Colloidal silver has been around though for quite some time, and you have to throw a little bit of caution in there. If you take colloidal silver on a semi-permanent basis, you can get graying and even bluing of the skin. So you have to be aware of that if you're going to be taking it long term. I would never recommend it long term. I would find an alternative. It is incredibly antibiotic. I have a silver generator, so I make my own for the shop and I sell it from the shop, and it's higher strength than you'd get commercially. The amazing thing about it is how antibiotic it is, and pre-war it was seen as state-of-the-art medicine. It really was. It kills over 600 different pathogens and has been clinically proven to kill over 600 different pathogens. To give some idea, an average broad spectrum antibiotic will generally kill about 22 bugs maximum, 20 probably as an average, and this is killing over 600 known pathogens. So the advantage of it is basically you've got an infection, try colloidal silver, but you don't want to be doing it for more than about 6 weeks as a continual thing. It doesn't do any other harm, but you will look a bit strange. I've never met anyone who's had a problem with it, but I have heard of people who've had a problem with it, whereby they turn into Smurfs, basically, i.e. they turn blue. Yeah, colloidal silver. It depends what it's for. It depends what you're trying to do with it. Great stuff at the right place and for the right amount of time.
Interesting, because I actually sent off for a colloidal silver generator in a magazine called Nexus magazine. I don't know if you ever heard of that term, Miles.
Yeah.
And this was years ago, and I got through the post 2 rods of silver and a 9-volt battery that you put on it. And somebody told me, I had a couple of, jars of this stuff, and someone said, "Don't take that." He said that's bad for you. I don't know, but
right.
bubbling.
It kind of is, and this is where it all comes very strange. I've actually got my colloidal silver generator. I say it's mine. I own a quarter share in it. It cost way back. Oh goodness me, it must have been about 2006, 2008, somewhere around there, and it cost then over £5,000. This thing, but this.
Oh, you've done. Mine cost me £4.95.
There you go. This thing has filters in it to produce atom-sized silver, so you can take it from atom up to about, because it tends to clump, and so if you've got a single atom of silver, it will go through the gut wall a lot easier than a clump of silver, and so it doesn't necessarily have to be the strongest is the best, the smallest is the best. So if you can get single atom silver, you can put it straight in your eye if you've got an eye infection, and it'll work on the infection without blurring your vision, without causing any problems or irritation in your eye. So your one with your 9-volt battery probably has a good few clumps coming off it, because basically what you've just done is you've got an anode and a cathode. What we're doing is with this machine that I've got, it pulses, it sends out a certain frequency of electricity to the anode and the cathode to deliberately only send off as smaller particles as you can, and then it gets filtered, and it's electronically filtered, so it's not a mechanical filter, it's electronic, and it'll tell you how fine it's got it down to. Expensive bit of kit, but it's trouble with it is it often goes wrong. Shh, don't tell people that bit.
we won't. Don't tell anybody.
It doesn't go wrong in so much as they're not single particles. It goes wrong as it goes, I haven't got that right, so I'm turning off and I'm not making any, and it goes on strike. So then you have to call the engineer out, who goes, "Oh yes, I know what that is, and here's a bill for £200 for fixing it." So it's not a cheap machine to run, and it's not that robust, which is odd. It's made by a company called Siemens, which are normally a very good company, but such is life.
Actually, about colloidal silver, Town Crier and I were talking about water filtration, because I use a zero water filter as you do, but unfortunately the water around here only lasts 3 weeks, because it's about 340 parts per million. It's the readings I've been getting from the water. So what I've been doing is pouring into, I've got loads of Brita filters, and I've been putting it through the Brita filters, then from the Brita filter into the zero filter, because I thought I might as well use the Brita filters up. But I was looking at a flower pot, because the what are they called now? The American ones, the Berkey. Well, you see, there's people online, they're actually getting flower pots and using them as water filters, but they say paint colloidal silver on the inside and outside of the flower pot, and then use that. So that's something.
What happens there? What happens there with that is that the silver will kill any bacterial growth that develops on the flower pot. If you're using the flower pot to filter, because Town Crier mentioned this to me, so there he's spilling the beans on you, Chris. I can't see that an ordinary flower pot would act as a filter, because what will happen is the flower pots are designed, the commercially available flower pots are designed to hold the water in the soil. So you may find that perhaps some older flower pots, because they weren't fired at the same temperature or whatever, may be porous. Whether that's going to be enough to stop the chemicals going through, I just don't know. I wouldn't like to say on that whether it will be a good enough filter. Certainly the zero filters, I think, are the way ahead, even ahead of the Berkey or whatever it is.
I agree with you.
But you've got to remember, and this was something I wanted to say to the lady who had the chronic kidney disease, you must be putting some minerals back in, because if you're taking everything out, water actually, pure water will dehydrate you because you've got no other salts in it. You've got nothing dissolved in it. So it will have a tendency to dehydrate you. So what you want to do is add the right electrolytes back in. I normally tell people, if they're using a zero filter, obviously I haven't told you, which I'm ashamed of myself.
No, you didn't tell me.
Okay.
Excuse me one moment. Exhibit A.
Well, he was a nice chap when we knew him. When he was around, he was a nice chap. What I do with my zero filter water is I put it into another jug and add a product called Concentrate. It's made by a company called Higher Nature, and it's drops of minerals, and it's very low in sodium, which we don't want the sodium in there, especially a lady with the kidney problem. But it's got plenty of the other minerals that go with seawater in it. The other way to go is to either put in just a pinch to a litre. You don't need a lot, but a pinch of pink salt, the Himalayan salt, or a pinch of even sea salt. If it's proper sea salt, unrefined sea salt, that'll be also a fair product to put in there, and that will just replace the minerals that you've got out. Obviously, for the lady with the chronic kidney disease, yeah, she's going to have to be extra careful not to use salt. It's too high in sodium.
That's interesting. Now, there's an interesting one here, which I know something a little bit on this. Paul Green said in World War I, the Germans rubbed garlic on their machine gun bullets. Now, I know for a fact the French army used garlic as an antiseptic in the First World War. That is, but I didn't know about this rubbing on their machine gun bullets.
Well, there we are. They could shoot you and you'd never get an infection.
Well, they were very kind, those Germans, weren't they? Because, hang on, perhaps it was friendly fire. Perhaps someone got caught. Sorry, we got garlic at the end of it, so you should be all right. You won't get infected, Now, we got something a little political here. It's Hachi, who likes my Screwfix joke. Germany in 1933 had a better idea of healthcare. That's right. They had what is called the people's healthcare, and it was natural health, and it worked. But I'm not being political there. It was called the people's medicine. And Chris, hi. As for Big Pharma, it's like a Screwfix magazine. It still ain't put the shelf up. I'm feeling like a gardener going uphill backwards. Yes, I'll tell you the Screwfix joke off air. Right, we got Sebastian again. This is Sebastian, right? FSC magnesium
is a triple source magnesium if you look on the back of the label, so it's a good magnesium to be taking. Yeah,
right. This is Sue Gawley. Do you stock vitamins which are totally free from fillers and binders?
No, is the answer to that. Fillers and binders are a problem. Most definitely they can be a problem, there's no doubt. The other side of it, though, a lack of them is also a problem, because if you've got an antioxidant and it's exposed to oxygen for more than certainly more than a few weeks, that will have oxidized because it's trying to neutralize the oxygen around it, and so your antioxidant will actually potentially become a free radical generator. And if you know what I'm talking about, that's great. If you don't, very, very quickly. Free radicals are not political agents. They're what happens when a cell or a fat or an organic compound starts to decay, they become free radicals. And what causes that decay and that breakdown and that rancidity is oxidation. So a good nutrient, you might think that your best nutrients are free from fillers and binders. Probably if you really want to get away from them, you're probably best having them in a liquid, because then the oxygen can't get to them as well. Even those, though, some of the liquids are not particularly favourable either. It's one of these things, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. I would rather get the nutrients in. I certainly don't want talcum powder as part of the tablet, because that would block up the pores of absorbency. The pores that I'm absorbing the nutrients through, so I'm going to absorb less of them. Right, we've got another one there. Anti-caking,
and also caking agents. It's the same.
Yeah, well, anti-caking agents actually help the tablet to dissolve. To get a license on a product nowadays, you have to prove that your product can dissolve, and we carry out distillation tests on them to make sure they dissolve in your stomach, and so you can deliver the nutrients. The caking agent should be inert, and certainly the ones that I'm dealing with are inert, as far as I'm concerned.
Right. Aunt Sonny says, can you park near Abbey Health Food Shop? And Kim's answered it by saying you can park in the co-op, but you only get a limited time there. And if you're tight-fisted like I am, you see, and you don't mind walking a little distance, if you go round the ring road, round the outside, and you go to the roundabout that goes to Upshire and then goes other places, and then you turn right towards the town and take the first turning on the left, the turning's empty, and you can park there all day. So you know, if you're tight-fisted like me, you think things like that.
Right, I park every day within, I would say probably within about 200 yards, maybe 300 yards of the shop every single day, just in the streets around there. I can't afford to pay the car park for all day. So, yeah, there are parking spaces. Have a look around. Most people don't. Most people go into the car park, but it's all right. If you're quick, it's okay. I think it's something like 20p for half an hour. It's not that bad, but as soon as you get up to gone an hour, it starts getting expensive. So have a little look around if you're going to spend some time in the shop.
Yeah, because you don't want to keep looking at your watch all the time, you know, and you might get this geezer in there. And he said the butchers, the good one is Church's. Thanks, mate. Thanks, John. Church's Butchers, Epping High Street. Because Epping is what you do when you're trying to attract a waiter's attention, isn't it? You're Epping, sorry. So... Right, and so we'll put that back on again just in case people. So Church's Butchers, Epping High Street. So, and there's another one along near Turnford, I think, Butchers. And now it says here, this is Robert Dorr. Hello, Robert. My local butcher mentioned that the number of butchers has reduced by over a half over the last 5 years or so. I believe that they're gradually trying to poison us. Yes, you've got a good point there. Well, look what's happened in Waltham Abbey. 2 large supermarkets opened up at the end of the high street, and it's just drained the trade away, because I remember on a Tuesday and Saturday you used to have to queue to get around the market. Now, I shouldn't be rude, but it's like a bad car boot sale, isn't it? You know, there's only a couple of stores looking at. Sorry to say that, but that's true. Now, this is Sebastian Moran. He said 45 vitamins have metal filings in them.
I don't know. I'm sorry, I don't look at that quality of vitamin. And I know it sounds really just chucking it to one side. I really don't know enough about 45 vitamins having metal filings in them. My apologies.
No, I don't. Supplements are being pushed hard lately. Yeah, probably the artificial ones.
Are they? I don't think they are. Okay, let's come back to that a little bit. By taking the right nutrients, you're going to increase your immune response. I've had COVID. I got over it and I got over it fairly quickly, probably because I'm looking after my immune system quite well, and my response to it was to heal quite quickly. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen with everybody, because some people do have compromised immune systems, but the vast majority of people don't, and so it's an interesting area. Let's get away from the COVID question. Let's go on to something like the common cold. Well, I just don't get them. It's quite simple. I haven't had a cold in years, literally years. When I get a cold, I probably do get them, but I shake them off so quickly. I just go, oh, a bit of a bad day today. I get up the next day and there's nothing. There's no cold. There's no cough. No problem. When I wasn't a nutritionist, this is it's my third career, so that tells you something. Maybe I'm edgy to get in and out of careers. They're all linked, but it's my third career. And when I was in my second career, I was a computer engineer on the hardware side of things, and I used to get colds and flus quite regularly. I was on the London Underground quite a lot. I was going from site to site on the London Underground and on buses. So I was exposed to damp and wet and cold quite a lot. I don't know whether it was that, but I certainly, and my diet wasn't particularly great. It wasn't awful, but it wasn't great either. I would come home and have a ready meal that was microwavable. I would get home and order up a pizza. That sort of thing happened, you know. So my immune response now is an awful lot better than my immune response used to be. I put that down to having good nutrition. So I hope that answers the question.
Yes, and actually, even though it was a couple of years apart, we used to work opposite each other, didn't we? Different buildings. We used to look over the Thames at your place, and you looked over the Thames at where I was. So, coincidence. And we got here Robert Dorr. Miles has a great take on the slaughter of animals, just like the old British Army spoof ad: join the army, travel, meet interesting people, kill them. And that was a Spike Milligan one, I think that was. And now I've got John Basinglow from America, Alabama, I believe. Hello, John. And it says, what is a humane way to slaughter an animal? I don't know, because I'm not a slaughterer.
I can answer that. You're right. There's no out and out humane way, but I think that we've tended towards a nation that doesn't slaughter in a humane way. We had the technology to do it. We used to do it. Now everything is slaughtered because of the demand for it on religious grounds, both kosher and halal. And I find that upsetting, because I don't think an animal should be bled to death. But that's my view on it. You know, there's other people's views on it. If we look at what other animals do, they also are barbaric with the animals that they're eating. I don't know if you've ever seen pictures. I've never seen it live, but whether you've seen pictures of bears eating salmon, for example, they just literally rip it apart, and the salmon doesn't stand any chance whatsoever. We are omnivores by design. And that I'm talking of design by evolution or by creation. It doesn't matter which. We have incisor teeth. They're small, but we have incisors. So if we are from the great apes, there isn't a great ape that doesn't eat some meat. And our closest relatives, the chimps, eat an awful lot of monkeys. Probably a higher proportion of meat that the chimps are eating than most humans are eating. They have it as a staple. Yeah, there's no nice way of killing an animal, but there are better ways of killing an animal. That's all I'm saying.
Yes, I agree. Yes, I mean, I used to be a vegetarian, then I went vegan, and I realised it's a very I'm not being rude to people. I know, and there's
Oh, I take my hat
not
off.
being rude at all. But the thing is, I realised I was very unhealthy. I had no energy. I was sleeping half the time, and that was a trouble. And on that subject, I'm jumping a few here. Sorry if I don't read all your comments out. Please don't take it personally, but it's very difficult. A heck of a lot in chat tonight. We've got Eman Sudama, and it says the Sikhs have a tradition of chopping animals' heads off with a scimitar to kill it humanely. So that's interesting.
I
now
think that's probably a more humane way of slaughtering an animal than hanging it up by its legs and draining its blood and letting its heart pump the blood out. Personally, I think that's a better way of doing it. But maybe I'm wrong. Yeah, maybe I'm totally wrong.
But then the fear that goes through that animal, I'm sorry, the fear, the adrenaline. Oh no, sorry, I don't really. But it is awful. Now it says here, Paul Green. Well, hang on. Perhaps I'm jumping one here. John Stevens says, I have been using a popular abattoir near Chelmsford that was recommended to produce a superb. Humphrey's been in existence for over 80 years. This is John Stevens.
It says actually in Chelmsford that was recommended. Produce is superb. Humphrey's been in existence for over 80 years.
Sorry, that's the abattoir. Oh, sorry, I got a bit muddled up.
I guess, yeah.
And now we got here Paul Green. The one I'm taking, this was you asked about. He asked about magnesium earlier, didn't he? The one I'm taking contains magnesium carbonate, magnesium hydroxide, and magnesium acetate. Does that sound okay?
Yeah.
Yes, and got a nice compliment here. This is Jackie Erdley 800. Hi everyone, first time in live chat. Love your channel, Chris. Well, that's very kind. Checks in the post, so there we go. Now this is an interesting one. Emin, high dose niacin is supposed to help schizophrenics.
Right.
Now,
yeah, I have heard this. The trouble with high dose niacin is that it also causes flushing. I don't know if you're aware of that, but so taking a high dosage of it, it can give you hot flushes. We actually meet a lot of people who come in the shop who are taking high dose niacin. I've not seen research on niacinamide for schizophrenics, but niacinamide, there's three basic types of niacin. There's niacin, which is the crude form, the raw form, if you like, of vitamin B3. There's nicotinamide and there's niacinamide. Niacin will give you hot flushes. Nicotinamide can. Niacinamide doesn't. I use niacinamide quite a lot for arthritic patients as well, because it also helps with synovial fluid production and regulation. And I give very high doses of that, up around 500 milligrams, and we never get any flushing with it. Whether or not that, I have seen papers about niacin and schizophrenics. I haven't seen any about niacinamide with schizophrenics. So yeah, maybe you have to use niacin. I don't know at the moment, I'm sorry to say.
That's interesting. And thanks, Miles. And this is an interesting one from John Stevens. And he says, I thought it started with the Egyptians' wheat.
John Stevens. Now there's
him.
Turn him off immediately. The Egyptians were growing vast amounts of wheat because they had vast amounts of, this is how I know it, they had vast amounts of basically slaves building projects like pyramids, cave burials like the Valley of the Kings, etc., etc. So they needed a big workforce to be fed for very cheap amount. So they would have grown a lot of wheat, almost certainly, but it wasn't them who took it into battle, because they actually didn't do a lot of invading. They had a lot of battles with the Hittites and with the Babylonians, and they fought more or less on the borders, and that was it, you know, to each other's borders. They didn't really go much beyond that. Whereas the Greeks took warfare further afield, and then the Romans even further afield. But John could be right. I mean, he's not right on much, but we might give him that.
Yeah. It says here, as is Evan again, some people say that high dose thiamine is good for chronic fatigue syndrome because it kickstarts energy metabolism.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've heard that as well. There's the first three B vitamins, B1, 2, and 3 are all involved. So even niacin is involved in energy production. There's a lot more to it than just the B-vits, though. So if you have got chronic fatigue problems, if you want to give me a bell, hopefully you have the number, and I'm sure I can convince Chris to put it up again at the end.
Yes, well, I'll put it up. Here we go. I'll put it up now. If you want. Here we go.
Okay, and give me a bell, and we'll talk it through, because what we can do is possibly give you some other leads in, like coenzyme Q10 and certain other minerals as well that will be helpful.
And if you don't mind me adding that, it doesn't matter where you live in the UK, you do send vitamins and minerals out by post to most locations in the UK. So that's not really a problem there. And I think was it over £35? It's free postage. Am I right there?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Okay. And it says, now Tina Goodwin. Who are you now? Oh, hello, Tina. I hope you don't think I'm rude in saying that Tina is a vegan. And is plant milk that's fortified with B12 a good source that's easily absorbed? That's an interesting question.
Plant milks are an interesting one. Most plant milks don't contain much nutritional value, which is sad, really. But it's because commercially, for example, you can make almond milk from I think I read somewhere it contains on average about 3 almonds to a litre of almond milk, or almond drink as they call it. And I think it's more or less the same with the soya. I think that it's it's like half a dozen beans or something. There's virtually nothing in it. The B12 in it, I haven't looked into this, so it's an area of nutrition I haven't looked into, fortifying it with B12. What I would suggest, if you're vegan, then get yourself a good source of B12 and take that good source of B12. A lot of people are coming in nowadays having had injections of B12. I'm personally against that as well. And you may say, oh, anything to get me to take a supplement. The reasoning behind it is that the B12 has a half-life of somewhere around about 20 hours. I think it's actually less than that. I think it's about 18 and a half, 19 hours. Now, a half-life means that when you've injected it or ingested it, you've got half the amount within that period of time. So let's call it 24 hours. So we're being generous here. So if you have a big dose of B12 injected and you're leaving it for 24 hours, well, it'll be half the amount. Then after, I'm writing this down, that's what I'm looking down. After 2 days, it will be a quarter of the amount. After 3 days, it will be an eighth of the amount. After 4 days, it will be a 16th. After 5 days, it'll be a 32nd. After 6 days, it'll be a 64th. And after 7 days, it'll be a 128th. So you've got 128th of that left at its maximum. That's absolutely at the maximum. If you're injecting it, it's ludicrous. And then people say, oh, but I go along every 3 months and I feel great when I've had it. Yeah, you feel great when you had it, but you're going into depletion afterwards. And it's a total unnatural level. You're getting a huge abundance of it and then none of it. after a week or so. So a far better way of taking it would be to take a supplement of it where you get a smaller dose, but on a regular basis, sort of every day or every other day, and you can regulate the amount. If you've got poor digestive activity, so if you're not producing enough intrinsic factor, which is what produces B12, then you just take a sublingual version of it, and that would get absorbed through the membranes in your mouth. You don't need any intrinsic factor at all, and you'll still get your B12. To me, that's a better option. Phone me, have a chat with me about it again. The amount you're getting in milks, I know, but I wouldn't have thought it was an awful lot.
Interesting. I actually avoid soya milk like the plague because somebody told me years ago that it's bad for your thyroid. Now, do you know anything? I've got to more about that. Is that correct?
All soya, doesn't matter if it's soy milk or tofu or soya sauce. Soya can reduce the functionality of your thyroid, so you can go into hypothyroidism through taking soya. In fact, there's a disease called Hashimoto's disease, and it's a disease of the thyroid. I understand that Dr. Hashimoto was looking at why Japanese suffer an awful lot more than Westerners from thyroid disease, so hypothyroidism, and he discovered that it was he got sidetracked onto this disease that it then got called Hashimoto's disease. This was way back, but the Hashimoto's disease, it first of all goes high, then the thyroid, then it goes low, and it bounces around all over the place. So you have to be very careful you haven't got that, because they'll give you either surgery to remove some of your thyroid when it's high, or radioactive iodine to kill it off, and it's not the way to go. It's not what you should be doing. You've got to let that one balance out. But as far as soy is concerned, yes, it has a very suppressing action on the thyroid.
Yeah, because I avoid now, after what you told me, I avoid dairy as well. And I'm using oat milk. I find that almond milk, bit of a twang when you have a cup of tea, you know, so I prefer oat. Right, and we got one here. Oats are another area where the corporations are I've disappeared. I'll come back again, that's good. Are fooling PPL into buying rubbish like, I won't mention the trade name, but people can see it, instead of ground Scottish oaks. So, yeah, you got a good point there.
The brand that we're not mentioning, they've been pre-cooked. That's what happens, and that's why they cook up so readily. They've been pre-cooked, and so you're recooking a product that you cooked. So I went on about recooking earlier, so I'm not going to go into it.
And we got Eamon again. He says, what does Miles think of high-dose vitamins like Linus Pauling recommends? Who's Linus Pauling? Never heard of him. Are they
Linus Pauling?
Who's he when he's out? I don't know.
Linus Pauling is the only man to have received 2 Nobel Prizes for science. Only man ever. And he received one for his research into supplementation, and another one into specifically the research that he did into vitamin C, which he's actually often belittled for. But he stood on a stage, good man, he stood on a stage at about age somewhere around about 90, 95, and he said, and he was wearing a sort of cowboy shirt and braces and a pair of baggy corduroy pants or trousers, and he stood there and he went, a lot of the people belittled me about my research into supplementation and how it extends life. Here I am, I'm 95 years old, and they're all now pushing up daisies. So he didn't think much of the people that belittled him. I think that Linus Pauling, I think his research was absolutely ahead of its time. I think it was totally, I totally respect it. I totally agree with it. But under certain circumstances, if you're trying to heal something, you need high dosage of nutrients. If you're just taking them to prevent disease and you haven't got that disease, well, then you don't need such a high dose. Your body will respond normally, and it will produce the right hormones, hopefully, and the right enzymes to keep you healthy if you just have a moderate dose of it. But certainly a lot more than the RDA, the recommended daily amount. That's, like I said, the amount you need to stop you getting scurvy or rickets or night blindness with vitamin A. It's a joke. I don't know why that was ever thought through or invented.
Well, I think it was Dr. Rath about in the early 90s. I saw a report that he did, and he reckoned that vitamin, was it heart attacks and strokes, mainly caused by vitamin D deficiency. Sorry, vitamin C deficiency. Sorry, I got it wrong.
Yeah.
C deficiency, and that's quite interesting because we can't absorb vitamin C like other animals do. Is that correct?
Animals produce their own vitamin C, but Matthias Rath was Linus Pauling's prodigy. So Matthias Rath was trained, his mentor, Matthias Rath's mentor was Linus Pauling. So you've got a chain of skills going on there. Hence why he was so much into vitamin C. It was originally Linus Pauling's pet subject.
Well,
other animals do produce their own vitamin C generally. There's very few that don't. Another mammal that doesn't, or two mammals that don't, are guinea pigs and fruit bats. The great apes don't produce their own vitamin C, but virtually everyone else produces their own vitamin C. And if you scaled us up, to give you some idea of how much they're producing, so if you scaled up by weight, we weigh about the same as a goat. And a large goat, so that's me, I'm 6 foot tall, I weigh 17 stone, I'm a bit overweight actually. So I'd be a big goat, I'd be producing 9-10 grams per day, grams, not milligrams. So that's 10,000 milligrams a day. If you scaled up a mouse to our sort of size, oh my goodness, you'd have to produce vast amounts. It'd be something like 35-40 grams for me per day. So yeah, the animals produce their own vitamin C.
Well, we've been going for 2 hours. Time has flown. I thought it was an hour, but it's 2 hours now.
Only another 3 to go then.
Well, that's right. I've just got and we've got a lovely one here. Kim says, Chris Miles must come back. This has been so interesting. And Rebecca says,
Thanks, Kim.
I agree, Kim. This is Rebecca says that. And so does Suru. Yes, I agree. Miles has been informative. Thank you for sharing. And this is an interesting one. Darren says, recent research I read says that hunting prey took so much energy that men would eat them on site and women would eat local foods like fish and berries. Well, actually, if you saw Survivalist Dave, I don't know if you've heard of Survivalist Dave, but well, we had a troll on last week, and I said that if this troll comes back, we'll send Survivalist Dave and Sebastian round to see the troll because they have such a nice way with them, and they'll give a facial with the sort of with the end of their knuckles. Anyway, I was going to say is no, I'm sure they're very peaceful, nice people. And joking aside, and he said that he's a survivalist, and he says, well, you can get prey an easier way. And I won't go into all the details, but he said you don't have to use up a lot of energy to actually hunt. So
small prey, that's right. I don't know enough about large prey. I used to do some survival myself for small animals, yes, but the bigger animals you're gonna struggle with. And when I say bigger, I mean things like buffalo and things like that, which I've never obviously hunted. But it's not for smaller prey. There are ways of catching them. Yeah.
And as for survivalists, I mean, he advised stocking up tins of corned beef and things like that. But
So
I think you've just almost fallen off your seat, haven't you, there, when I mentioned corned beef and spam.
urban survival.
Well, look, we've got a load of, we've got some, I don't know, I'm still going down all the questions here, and I'm thinking that it might be a good idea to reserve them for another show. Would that be okay? Now, would you like to go on? We've gone over 2 hours, or
I'm
how do you feel?
actually getting a little bit of backache here, so I'd
I
rather
understand.
another show.
Shall we wrap this up now? And
Well, if you've got a few there, if they're quick ones, let's do a couple more and pick good ones, and we'll
right,
see if we can, and then we'll call it a day, I think.
let's have a look. As replacing minerals, that is. Oh, hang on, we got one here. We've got Robert Dorr on the subject of replacing minerals. What is your take on fulvic mineral drink concentrate from Belter Bio Health?
Belter Bio Health. So Robert, I'm really sorry I've not been that helpful to this guy tonight. I don't know this fulvic mineral drink. If it's full of alkalizing minerals, then it's probably quite a good product. I don't know, but replacing minerals with drinks is always a good option because you absorb them well in the gut. Like I say, whether or not this is a balanced product, I don't know. I'm sorry to say, Robert, but I will look it up if you want me to, and perhaps if we do another show, you can fire that question at me again. I'll write it down. So I'll have a little look.
Sorry, Miles, I'm terribly sorry. That's rude of me. Please carry on.
So it's fulvic.
Fulvic. Are you in the UK, Robert? Because we do have quite a few viewers for overseas, as far away as Australia and Thailand as well. You okay?
Okay. I've written that down, Robert. If I'm on another show, and please come back with that question. I'll look it up and I'll try and get you an answer to that. Probably it's a good thing. Overall, I like minerals in drinks. Yeah. Okay.
Sue Jordan here. Who's she, I wonder? Hello, Sue. Sounds like a show with our mates on, doesn't it? It just seems to be there's a lot of people that actually come to see you, Miles. So that's how I know these.
Look at this.
Yes. Hi, Miles and Chris. John has recommended Church's Butchers at Epping. They also have a counter in Van Hagues at Ware. There is also a good butcher at the top of Forest Road in Cheshunt. Yes, I know that. That's the one I think I was mentioning. I thought it was Turnford, but it's not. It's Forest Road, Cheshunt.
Is that one still there though, Sue? Wasn't that called? Oh no, I'm thinking of the one at the Old Pond. My apologies. Yeah, there probably is. I'm thinking of the one at the Old Pond. I've forgotten what that's called.
He's long gone. Yeah, he's long gone.
3-4 years ago.
The one in Waltham Cross went around about Christmas time, just after Christmas.
Oh, yeah.
And that was the last one. Kim, Miles, do you think everyone can benefit from a good multivitamin? That's a good question.
Absolutely. Go out there, like I say, Kim, you've already got a good multivitamin, but go out there, pick wisely. Do not pick. Sadly, there's a brand that's a commercial brand. You can tell if it's a commercial brand quite easily. If it's advertised regularly and it's out there in the paper and it's on the telly and it's on the billboards and all this kind, and on the back of buses, it's almost certainly a commercial brand. Very quickly, a couple of commercial brands: Vitabiotics, Wasson, and then some of the iron supplements like what was it called, Ferrogold or something. These are commercial brands. They're not all that good. Get into a decent health food shop. Get into there. Ask questions. Explain to the person who's behind the counter that you've got a need in a certain way. You might be very active. You might be very sedentary. That makes a difference. And then ask them to recommend a good product. I very much doubt you'll find that they'll give you bad advice in an independent health food shop.
but she doesn't have to because she knows you. It's Kim.
Well, you're ready.
And we got Ancient Ruby. I'm so late. Hello, Chris, and hello, Miles. Plus all the chat. Hello. I totally lost track of time. I forgot it's Monday. Note from parents, please, and lions, I think. Yes. And we got Sebastian Moran. My apologies in cereals. Okay,
What?
Sebastian, we'll forgive you. I don't know.
Is that the metal?
Oh, yes, about the metal in the cereals.
About the metal? Really?
Yes, my apologies.
I don't
He's very, very polite. And seriously, he really is one of the most politest people you ever wish to meet. That's Sebastian. Very nice.
I don't eat cereals, Sebastian, and that's just put me off them even more. So there you go. Yeah, don't eat metal.
And this is an interesting one. Well, I quickly flick through. There's Aunt Sally. Our meat is sacrificed to the gods. Doesn't matter if you're a believer or not. That's interesting. And we got Darren. They like to produce meat with stress hormones in it. That's an interesting one. And
yeah, that is interesting.
I won't read this out, Kim, but you'll understand the reason why, because of YouTube, censorship and that. So yeah, I think I agree with you there. And we got Darren. I worked on a farm as a child. We treated our animals with respect, especially at dinner time. Yes,
absolutely, Darren. Fantastic.
That's great. And we got here Ancient Ruby. They still slaughter animals in a barbaric way, and I stopped eating meat because of what I saw. They never show you the real truth, or you would stop eating them. It killed me seeing it. Yes, I can understand that. The thing is that if I was hungry and I had to hunt, I think it would upset me first of all. But unfortunately, you get hardened to these things. I'm not sure. I don't know. It's difficult because we're not. Our ancestors would have taken it for granted. We have not been born into that. That's the thing. Now it says here the way of halal. I won't read this out. I'll just show this up. High levels of fear produce high levels of adreno. No death is a good day, but some are better for the adreno junkies. Other ways are better for the animals. That's very interesting, Louise. Sorry if I've skipped over a bit quickly.
I think Louisa sort of sums up how I feel about that as well. It's not a great day, whatever, if it's your day to die, but it can be made easier or less easy.
This is very true. All plant. No, not to. No, I disagree with the oat one. All plant milk tastes horrible to me. Now, if I needed to throw up, give me one of those. Was it herbal teas? Well, that especially strawberry. I think that almost. I think it almost even got to my lips. I couldn't keep it down. And now it says here, this is interesting. Louise Wilcox, is it right that most plant-based foods are made in laboratories?
No, most plant-based food. If you're a good vegan, you would be eating proper foods, grown in fields, preferably grown by yourself, so they're not intense. Well, actually, grown by yourself is more intensively farmed normally, but you've put the proper things back into the soil and you get the right foods out. There are these horrible things like corn, and I don't mean corn, I mean corn with a Q. That's a microfungus. It doesn't exist in nature. I don't think it's fit for consumption realistically. But if you're looking after yourself properly, you're mixing up your diet well, especially with your proteins. And veganism and vegetarianism, it can suit some people. It doesn't happen to suit me. I feel very weak whenever I go veggie or vegan. And I've tried it a couple of times and just can't stay with it, unfortunately.
Well, we've got so many questions here, and they're really
we'll
great
have another
questions.
day.
We'll have to have another date because let's have another date on this. Please excuse me if I haven't read. I know there's a lot of really interesting questions, but Miles, you've had a very heavy day at work, and I'm very honoured, and I'm very much appreciated that you come on tonight. The question is, would you like to come on another show? Because
never again, Chris.
yes, because I mean, just look in the chat room. I mean, people want you back on. It's absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much.
Perhaps we'll discuss slightly different, either very different matters in nutrition. Nutrition's vast. As you can tell, I couldn't answer half of the questions there, unfortunately. It's not my area. But either we do it on a different area of nutrition, or we'll do it on perhaps a different method of healing. Maybe we'll talk about acupuncture or something along those lines.
Yes, that would be very interesting.
Or
and Chinese medicine, you know, things like
Chinese
that.
medicine generally, yeah. So we'll set that up. We'll set that up,
okay.
And we'll do another show in the near future. Yeah.
This is brilliant, and thank you so much for coming on tonight. And please remember that tomorrow this show will be loaded up to my BitChute channel, because we've got to go through a period of about 12 to 24 hours whilst YouTube they analyze it to see if we said anything naughty, so they would censor it. So it's until tomorrow. So then tomorrow, and it will be loaded up to BitChute. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. And also, I'm back same time, same place, 8 o'clock next week. And please remember to ding that bell, put your thumbs up on the comment, you know, on the actual beneath here. Details of Miles's shop is actually in the comments section below this video. And I'll say this every week, whatever happens, I'm going to add a little bit extra to this. I usually say have a laugh. Remember, the finest medicine is happiness and laughter. So thank you very much for joining us. Thank you, Miles, for joining us, and good night.
Thank you, Chris. Good night.